In 1996, one of the most promising technology companies in America was only months away from disappearing forever. They had spent millions of dollars. They had created a revolutionary product. They had some of the smartest engineers in the industry, and nobody wanted it. The company that would later become the most valuable semiconductor company in the world was fighting for survival. This is the story of NVIDIA, a company that went from almost bankruptcy to controlling the future of artificial intelligence. But the most incredible part is this. The man who built this empire did not win because he was lucky. He won because when everyone else saw failure, he saw the future. Today, NVIDIA technology powers artificial intelligence, supercomputers, autonomous vehicles, and some of the most advanced systems ever created. Companies like Microsoft, Google, Tesla, and countless AI startups depend on NVIDIA chips. But in the beginning, nobody believed they needed this company. There were dozens of competitors. The market was crowded. The technology was uncertain, and one wrong decision could have ended everything. The person behind this impossible journey was Jensen Huang. Long before becoming one of the most powerful CEOs in technology, Jensen was just a young immigrant trying to find his place in America. Born in Taiwan, Jensen moved to the United States as a child. His early years were difficult. He experienced a strict environment where discipline was not optional. Every challenge forced him to develop something that would later define his leadership: the ability to survive under pressure. Because years later, NVIDIA would face its biggest test, a moment when the entire company was about to collapse. After studying electrical engineering and working with major technology companies, Jensen gained experience designing computer chips. He worked at companies like LSI Logic and AMD, learning how the semiconductor industry worked from the inside. But he realized something. The biggest opportunities were not always where the industry was looking. Sometimes the greatest businesses are created by seeing a future that does not exist yet. Then came one conversation that changed everything. In 1993, Jensen Huang sat down with two engineers and started discussing an idea that sounded almost impossible. They believed the next revolution in computing would not come from faster processors. It would come from better graphics. They were betting that video games, 3D worlds, and visual computing would become one of the biggest industries on Earth. Most people thought they were crazy, but those three engineers were about to create something that would change technology forever. A company called NVIDIA. The beginning of NVIDIA was not a story of instant success. There was no billion-dollar valuation, no global recognition, no guarantee they would survive. There were only 3 engineers, a risky idea, and a belief that computers were about to change forever. In a small meeting at a Denny's restaurant in California, Jensen Huang, Chris Malachowski, and Curtis Preem spent hours discussing one question: what would be the next great opportunity in computing? Their answer would become one of the biggest bets in technology history. At that time, the semiconductor industry was extremely competitive. Creating computer chips required enormous amounts of money, specialized engineers, and years of development. Most companies were focused on improving traditional processors. But Jensen and his partners believed something different. They believed the future would belong to graphics. Video games were becoming more advanced. Movies were moving toward digital effects. Computers were becoming more powerful. The world was about to enter a new visual era, and NVIDIA wanted to build the engine behind it. But starting a technology empire with almost no money sounds impossible. The founders had only around $40,000 when they started the company. $40,000 to compete in an industry where giants were spending millions. They needed investors. They needed people who believed in a future that did not exist yet. Eventually, Jensen approached venture capital investors and presented his vision. One of those investors was Don Valentine, the legendary founder of Sequoia Capital. The investment changed everything. Sequoia invested millions into NVIDIA, allowing the company to hire engineers and build its first products. The company opened its first office in California. The dream was becoming real. But technology has a brutal rule. A great idea means nothing if the product fails. And NVIDIA was about to discover that lesson the hardest way possible. After more than a year of development, NVIDIA launched its first graphics chip. It was called the NV1. On paper, it looked revolutionary. It could handle 3D graphics. It processed video. It supported audio. It included gaming features. It was a Swiss Army knife of technology. The problem? The market did not want it. The NV1 was too expensive. Developers were not creating enough software for it, and competitors were moving in a different direction. Instead of becoming the product that saved NVIDIA, the NV1 almost destroyed the company. Millions of dollars were lost. Employees were laid off. The future looked uncertain. A company that wanted to revolutionize computing was now fighting simply to stay alive. But this failure created the most important moment in NVIDIA's history. Because when Jensen Huang faced the possibility of losing everything, he made a decision that would either save NVIDIA or end it forever. Most companies die after their first major failure. But NVIDIA was different. The failure of the NV1 did not destroy Jensen Huang. It forced him to ask the most important question of his career. What if we are building the wrong thing? Many leaders protect their original idea because they are emotionally attached to it. Jensen did the opposite. He was willing to destroy his own plan, to build something better. In 1996, NVIDIA began working on a new project called NV2. The company believed it had found the next breakthrough in 3D graphics. But there was a major problem. The entire industry was moving in another direction. Microsoft was developing Direct 3D, a technology that would become the standard for computer graphics. And NVIDIA's approach was not compatible with that future. The company was once again heading toward a disaster. At this point, Jensen Huang had two choices: finish a product that was almost guaranteed to fail, or abandon years of work and start again from zero. The second option could destroy the company. Without the money from future deals, NVIDIA could run out of cash. The safer decision was to continue. But Jensen understood something most people do not. Sometimes protecting your past is the fastest way to lose your future. After intense discussions inside the company, Jensen made the decision. NVIDIA would cancel NV2. They would completely change direction. Many people believed this was the end. The company had already failed once. Now they were throwing away their second project. But Jensen was not trying to save a product. He was trying to save a vision. Then something unexpected happened. A company that had every reason to walk away decided to help NVIDIA survive. Sega, which had previously worked with NVIDIA, provided financial support that gave Jensen and his team more time. It was not enough to make them successful. It was simply enough to give them one more chance. And NVIDIA needed that chance, because the next product would determine everything. Instead of creating hardware first, Jensen changed the entire process. The team would design the software first, then create the chip around it. It was a completely different approach. They used technology from a struggling company to simulate the chip before it was even built. This allowed NVIDIA to test ideas faster and avoid expensive mistakes. The result was a new generation of graphics technology, a product called Riva 128. And this time, everything changed. When Riva 128 launched in 1997, nobody expected what happened next. In just 4 months, NVIDIA sold more than 1 million units. The company that was almost dead had created one of the fastest growing graphics chips in history. Competitors that once dominated the market began disappearing. NVIDIA was no longer fighting for survival. It was becoming a serious competitor. It was about seeing what the world would need before the world knew it needed it. Jensen Huang understood something powerful. The greatest companies are not created by following trends. They are created by creating the future. From a small company fighting bankruptcy, NVIDIA became the foundation of modern artificial intelligence. The same GPUs that once powered video games are now helping scientists discover medicines, training AI models, powering autonomous vehicles, and building the next generation of technology. They see the billions. They see the success. They see the trillion-dollar valuation. But they don't see the failures. They don't see the moments when the company was almost finished. They don't see the difficult decisions that had to be made when there was no guarantee of success. Because every great empire has a moment where everything could have ended. For NVIDIA, that moment came many times. And every time, Jensen Huang chose to keep building. Today, NVIDIA is more than a chip company. It represents a new era of computing, a future where artificial intelligence becomes one of the most important technologies in human history. And the lesson behind NVIDIA's journey is simple. The people who change the world are not always the ones who know exactly what will happen. They are the ones brave enough to prepare for a future nobody else can see. From a small restaurant conversation to the center of the AI revolution, this is the story of NVIDIA, a company that almost disappeared, but instead changed the future forever.